Welcome back to Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, everybody. We are really excited today to have Katie Phillips on. And Katie Phillips has done so many things. She has written a book called The Self-Love Affair, A Woman's Guide to a Daring and Mighty Life. She's also done many TED Talks. She also has the School of Self-Love that you can catch, and that's on YouTube, correct? Or the
There's the
School of
School
Self.
of Self-Love. It's
Yes,
everywhere.
it's
It's everywhere.
everywhere. It's everywhere. Okay. The School of Self-Love. And I saw it on YouTube, so you can catch it everywhere. And we are so happy to have her here today because she's going to talk about finding a love in midlife. So many women, many of our listeners I know out there are going through just, maybe a change in life, not just that change in life, but also a change in their personal life and relationships. And you may have never been married. You may have been in a long-term relationship and that ended, or you maybe didn't want a long-term relationship and now you're ready for one. So Katie is here today to talk about that and her experiences and how to help you with that. So thank you so much for being on, Katie.
Oh my goodness, it's my pleasure, and thank you both for having me.
Yeah, we're thrilled with, fortunately, Colleen and I right now have not had to experience this, but we have many friends and many family members that have gone through this, and it seems very challenging. So we're so happy to talk about this. What is your first thing to tell someone that would come to you and say, I need some help in this area?
Oh my goodness. The first thing, well, the thing I'm most passionate about is inviting a woman to prepare for next level relationship, because I've never ever met a woman or a man who wants to be in a relationship who doesn't want the next relationship to be better than the one they were in before. Like we all want an up level. And even if the relationship we're in before was fantastic, there's still going to be some areas of growth required. And if we want to up level a relationship, then we're always going to be the common denominator. So I have to up level myself first to be the kind of woman that's actually able to not only call in but sustain a relationship that's of a next level. So it's all about the inner work. So I'm kind of a little bit bossy about this idea of saying to people, you're probably not ready for online dating yet. Like, don't jump straight in. Why not just like take a beat and dial into what it is that you really want, as opposed to what it is you don't want, because we all know what we don't want, and it's about redefining and moving towards what we do want, and noticing like what inner work is required. And we could talk about that today, perhaps.
Well, it's interesting because there are a lot of women who are either ending a long relationship and maybe they were in it for the kids, maybe it was just comfortable, and they don't even know, like you just said, what they want in a next relationship. They want to be happy, they want to have a companion, they want to have somebody there, and they're not sure about, gosh, it's changed so much. Just like you mentioned, online dating setups. I mean, the dating world 30 years ago doesn't look anything like the dating world now. So what are kind of the first things a woman should do when you say, let's start doing the work? Like,
Mm.
you're a big proponent on, you need to love yourself before you can share that love with somebody else. What kind of inner work can women start doing?
Okay, so before I answer that, I think I just want to preface it, because I think this is so important, with while inner work is important, it's so important not to get attached to I have to be perfect and have it all sorted and all lined up in order to have a healthy relationship. Because I think we're always learning and growing and evolving, and the inner work, from my perspective, doesn't ever really stop. And the hope is that you move into a relationship with somebody that's also willing to do their own work and is living consciously. And then you just keep growing and evolving together. And there's some inner work and there's some personal growth that just can't happen on your own. It kind of requires you to be in the challenge of a relationship to kind of like help you to grow. I like to say that first, because I come a bit of a perfectionist, A-type personality, recovering perfectionist. And you can start to fall down into that trap of thinking I have to have it all perfect and have myself totally sorted. Otherwise, I'm not enough for somebody else. But where do we begin? Oh my goodness. I think it's going to be different for every woman. And I think any inner work, It starts with a decision. It starts with maybe a humble and vulnerable admission to yourself that there was stuff that I could have done better in that last relationship, or I know that I have things that there's repeat patterns in my relationships, or there's certain things that always trigger me, and maybe that's where I begin. Because if I want to be with somebody that is, say, emotionally available, and most of us want to be with an emotionally available, communicative partner, I'm going to have to check in with myself and ask myself, well, how emotionally available am I with me? Like, how much time do I actually spend sitting with myself and the truth of me and the truth of my feelings? And can I love all these parts of me? Can I love the good and the bad? And maybe we just have to start there. But the decision first is, well, the first step is a decision. It's, I'm willing to take a look at me and my stuff, my triggers, my patterns, and I'm willing to do something about it. Now, what that thing is that you do about it will be different for every person. But I know that whenever we make a decision, it kind of like energetically starts shifting things around us. And I really believe that life, God, the universe sends us on a path and shows us what we need next. And it might be a book, it could be a podcast, it could be some song lyrics or a coach or a therapist, but we're kind of guided on our path step by step. It's the first step, though, is that conscious, intentional decision that I'm going to start with me and stop expecting the other person to be all things, or stop expecting the other person to fix me or or make it all better.
Absolutely.
The buck
Yeah.
stops with us.
Yeah. I know a lot of women have left traumatic experiences in a
Mm.
relationship. And have you worked with women that have left traumatic relationships, but they want to move on, but there's something stuck? What would you say to someone who has left a really, could be abusive, could be mentally abusive, but they still want to share their life with someone? What is some advice you would give to someone?
I myself have been in a narcissistic, emotionally abusive relationship, and I will never forget how that severely knocked my confidence, had me doubt just my foundational sense of self. I didn't know who I was without having somebody reflect back to me and kind of tell me who I was. I felt really lost and at sea in the world after that relationship. And so it's like I was just saying, you recover by first acknowledging that I need support and help to move past this pain. Like, there's no way I could have done that on my own. I had to call in support. Now, I didn't know what support. I had no clue what that would look like. And it was shown to me. A therapist came in, and then it was a coach, and then it was meditations and so on. I think that we have to, the invitation at that point is to build our own self-worth back up, and that is a self-love journey. And I think if you've been in a particularly abusive, difficult situation, you really need support and help. It's just not something to do alone, and it's okay to ask for help.
Once you start feeling a little more confident in yourself and a little, I guess, self awareness is growing,
Mm,
and you're like, okay, I'm ready to put my toe into the dating world, not necessarily dive in the deep end,
mm,
but put my toe in there. What are kind of the first steps to meeting your soulmate?
So if you want to put your toe in, like we were saying at the beginning, you do need to know what it is that you're calling in and not so much focus on what you don't want. So I know the starting point is always going to be, I don't want these qualities in my next person. But what do you want? And you were saying earlier as well that so many women find themselves in relationships and with the children and so on, and they're in such a habit of noticing what the kids need, what the husband needs, what the job needs. They've lost sight of themselves and what they need. So when you ask them, what do you want? And this is before you even get into the realms of what do you want in your person, in your next relationship. What do you want? They can't answer. And it makes sense because the focus has just been external. So we've got to bring the focus back in on the individual. And yeah, what do you want in a person? Really feel into that. What would feel really good for you? And then start noticing, when you start checking that out, you're going to start noticing little voices that pop up and say, you can't have that, or that's too good to be true, or that person doesn't exist, Or who do you think you are to ask for that whole list? Or it's never going to happen for you. Like, it's too late. You've already had your big love. Or the fact that you've never had a big love means you're probably not going to have a big, like, all these
Right.
mean
All these
voices, negatives
Mhm.
come up. But right there is really beautiful information, because I'm a big believer that we are all energy, we're all energetic beings, and our belief systems, it's just energy. Our emotions, it's just energy. The ways we're showing up in the world, it's all energy. So when you start to notice, you write your beautiful list of this incredible, amazing human that you're going to call in, and then the little voices, the sabotaging voices kick in. Those voices are an energy, and it's a repelling energy. It's a block energy. It's an energy that's going to put a wall between you and what you want. You're going to be pushing it away because you don't really believe you're worthy of it. You don't really believe you're good enough to have what you desire. And they're the pieces you start working on. And with the support maybe of a friend or a coach like me or a therapist, you will start to understand, well, why is it that I believe that about myself? Why is my self-worth so low? Why do I not believe I'm worthy of a love like that, or someone to respect me and take care of me like that? And pick it apart and come to understand that, and heal it, and look to what else could be true for you, and start to try on new beliefs, like, I am worthy, like, he is looking for me as well, you know. So I think, yeah, it's all about cleaning up our own energy to be the vibrational match for what we're looking for. Because what comes in the relationship, you know, most of us could hand on heart say we have patterns in relationships. And if you're dating, or if you've had a series of relationships and you've got patterns running, the people that are coming into your world are simply a reflection of where you're at energetically, or where you're at in terms of your belief systems. They're just mirroring it back to you. So if you want a different type of relationship, a different experience, you have to clean up your side of the street first to be able to be that kind of magnet for the something else, or that next level relationship.
That's so important. I know Colleen always says that people will call themselves selfish. Will say, "Oh, why am I'm so selfish to think of myself." And she's like, "No, there's nothing wrong with that." And I do love how you use the
Mm,
self-love and self-care. And that's such an
mm.
important aspect, that you've got to find out who you are and put that out there to attract
Yeah.
that. So that you know, it's been a long time since I dated, but before I met my husband, that was kind of the same thing. And then finally, it's like when I met him, it was, he makes me laugh. And that was the number one thing. He makes
Mhm.
me laugh. You know, it didn't matter anything else. Well, he treats me well too. That's very important.
That's always helpful.
But that's always helpful. But it was where you got to the point where I just want to be happy. I just want to laugh. And then this person made me laugh. So that is so important. It's not wrong there's nothing wrong with looking out for yourself. And I really
Yeah.
like that about what you
Well,
do.
this is something that comes up a lot with clients and women in my community. Is this piece of self-love is somehow egocentric, or selfish? And I think the opposite. I think it's selfish not to love yourself, because if you're not loving yourself, which means taking care of yourself physically, as well as cleaning up those sabotaging belief systems, developing an emotional mastery, really having your own back, healing patterns of behavior like codependency. If you're not available to do that for yourself, then the people that you love are not getting the best version of you. They're getting a triggered version of you. They're getting an exhausted version of you, because you're people pleasing all the time. But, you know, they're just not getting the best of you. So you are actually honoring those people by doing your work and cleaning up your stuff. And we can do that whether we're single or in a relationship. Like, that hasn't stopped for me because I'm now married. I have to keep doing it because, you know, he keeps growing and evolving. I've got to keep up.
Yes.
Mm,
That's important to remember, that even if you're in a relationship, it's constantly evolving. It's
mm,
constantly
yeah.
changing. And like anything else, you have to put energy into it. If you want it to be
Yeah.
successful, you have to put energy into that. What do you say to those women who they've started dating again? And we'll get into online, because that
Mm.
whole thing scares, I mean, thank God I'm
Oh,
married, because that just
I
scares
know. I know. We
every
could talk about that. Yeah.
but
Mm,
they started dating again, and they fallen into that pattern of, well, he's super nice and he's this and that. I can change him. Okay, he's a little bit, he gets angry at times or whatever the case may be, but the I can still change it philosophy. What do you say to those women?
So I understand those women, and I think that they are self-abandoning in doing that. I think that none of us have the power to change anybody else. We can have an influence and we can guide and be a light only from the place of doing it for ourselves first. I mean, my husband has just recently come to a meditation practice and reading some books that I've always wanted him to read. I've always kind of stayed in the background, and I do my thing and he sees me doing my thing, and he sees me doing my meditation practice and reading all the books. And because I mean, it's my work, it's my passion, it's I live and breathe it. And we're 5 years in now, and he's really starting to move into that space and enjoy it. Now, him not meditating or reading personal development books wasn't a deal breaker for us when we met. Like, he's a conscious, beautiful man. That's something, and I'm using a very basic example here, but that's something I couldn't force on him. I couldn't turn him into somebody that meditates. That was for him. And the only way that, if you're going to change somebody, and that just actually just sits really uncomfortably with me just to say that, if you are going to change someone, it's from a place of inspiration, because you're doing it for yourself first, and they're seeing the benefit. They're seeing the change in you. It's like, be the change you want to see in the world, like, do it for yourself, and then allow them to follow if they want to. I think we've all got our own journey. And honestly, who do we think we are to think that we know better and someone else should be different?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not God. It's not for me to say how somebody else should be. If there's a misalignment between him and I, if I was dating somebody and I didn't feel like our values matched and that we just weren't aligned, then we're not aligned. And I have to develop that faith and trust that someone better exists. And when I say better, I just mean a better match for me, not a better human or person, just a better match for me. And if I'm unable to do that, then I'd have to check in with myself and ask myself, well, what? Because it's quite a scarcity mindset to believe, if I don't like cling on to this person and change them to how I need them to be, then I'm not trusting that there's someone better for them than me, and I'm not trusting someone better for me out there. I'm clinging on from a place of scarcity and lack, and not trusting in the abundance that's possible. And I'm not trusting that maybe I'm enough for a relationship that feels really fully aligned for me. So I'd always come back to me and check that out.
I think that word trust is hard for a lot of women, trusting that there will be someone else, trusting. As we get older, I think they think that the dating pool gets smaller, and maybe it does. So that trust is a hard thing to cling to. Is it through the work of self-love that you get that trust? Does that trust build through your own personal work?
For me, that's been my experience, and I do see that in my clients, because I think the more that I develop a relationship with me and build my own self-trust, then I know that whatever's going on externally can't rock the foundations of who I am, and how I can have my own back. Dating's scary. It's, putting yourself out there vulnerably, sharing your heart with people, even if it's just through texting through a dating app to start with, before you even go on the first date and the second date. Like, the process is scary, because even though we humans are wired to connect and want to love and be loved, no one's really shown us how to do it. I mean, some of us have been very lucky to have parents that modeled it beautifully so that we could go and have healthy marriages. So many of us haven't had that. And so putting yourself out there is super, super scary, and how do you do that? How do you trust another person with your heart? How do you trust someone with your vulnerability if you haven't developed that trust with yourself first? And self-love does invite us into self-trust. And for me, the greatest way to develop self-trust is always be there for yourself, to not self-abandon. So when you say you're going to do something for yourself, do it. Because every time you don't do it, you're weakening that self-trust. It's like in your marriages. You two both have wonderful marriages. If your husband repeatedly said he was going to do something for you and didn't, you wouldn't trust him to show up for you. And it's the same for us. If I'm going to take care of myself, if I commit to it, and then do it, I'm building self-trust.
And with along with trust, so many people I know, so many friends of mine, family members with the trust issue have had a partner in the past be unfaithful to them.
Yeah.
And that is, I see so many of my friends when that happens to them, that they jump into another relationship. And then you use the word clinging, and I see them cling to a relationship that I just, you can't tell someone what to do. You
No.
cannot tell them what to do. They're
Right.
just going to, yeah.
But what
And
you're speaking to there is this piece about what we don't own owns us. So these beautiful women have had a terrible experience, and it makes so much sense that they don't trust. It's like, well, of course. And yet, every relationship they move into, until they own the pain and the disappointment, the regret, the sadness, the grief, all the things, all the feelings around being cheated on, and work through that and come to a place of knowing it was something that happened, but it's not who I am. Just because it happened doesn't define me. If they go through their own healing journey with that, then they're going to be able to show up in relationship, not in reaction to past pain, but always in response to present moment situation.
I
So
really like that. The reaction
Right.
to past pain. That is, that is very
yeah,
important, because I see it, and I understand why it happens. If
of course.
this partner has left and is going off with someone else, and they feel alone,
Mm,
I can see why they want to go out on a date, and I'm sure it would
yeah,
mess with your psyche. I know that in my dating pattern, those were things that happened, and
yeah,
thought, well, they're out with someone else, I'm going to date someone else too. And then
yeah.
the clinging part, I've seen that so much, where they will cling to this person that may not be a good match for them.
Mm.
But I really like that. I like what you said there. Yeah.
Can we go into that realm of online dating? That kind
Sure.
of scary tunnel that luckily Bridget and I have not gone into, but we've seen many of our friends go into. What's that like for midlife women?
Well, can I just say that I just noticed you said it was a scary tunnel. As you said it, I went, and like we were like, oh yeah, it's so scary. But right there is actually part of the problem and the difficulty with online dating, because again, what we believe is what we get.
Right.
And so while I believe it's scary and I'm like clenching, while I believe that, then that's going to be my experience of it. So, first of all, I think we have to come to some kind of peace with the experience and move into a place of, a great way to come to peace with online dating and see it as a hopeful, exciting experience is to notice all the people that are having beautiful success there. Like, we do hear the horror stories, and there are horror stories, and self-care, self-protection is a very important part of online dating. And I actually bring in an online dating expert to do classes with my clients, because I'm not the expert, but he comes in and teaches them, basic tips and tools on how to protect yourself. When you go out on a date, you do it in a public place. You don't go for a walk in a park after dark. It sounds silly, but it's amazing. And when you use the word, Bridget, about clinging, it's, if some women, if they're feeling a bit desperate, and they quick to self-abandon, then when a guy says, yeah, why don't we just meet for a stroll, we'll get an ice cream, but it sounds all very romantic, but actually the sun's gone down and you're in a park and you're on your own. Like, it's not okay. So
Yeah.
there's basic strategies to consider when dating. But in the first instance, perhaps look for proof and evidence that many people of all ages, including midlife, and may I be one of those examples. I met my husband online, and I swore I'd never go online. I did meet him very easily, and it was the most easy, joyful, beautiful experience. And he's a good human, and there's lots of good humans, and there's lots of great stories. So it's that thing of, we were talking about it earlier, instead of focusing on what you don't want, move towards what you do want. It's the same with online dating. Instead of focusing on the horror stories, why not look for evidence and role models of who have done it before you? And then I like to approach online dating. Again, it's all about energy, but I like to approach it with an energy of fun and anticipation, rather than it being like the thing that I cling all and hang all my hopes on. And if this doesn't work, it's never going to happen for me. Why can't we just let it be easy and joyful and fun?
Absolutely. Yeah. I know that
You know?
my children in their 20s, that's how they go on
Yeah.
dates. That's
Yeah.
how they meet people. And,
Yeah.
they do meet in a public place, usually a coffee shop or somewhere where
Yeah.
there's lots of people around. And, one of them is still in a relationship with someone that they met
Mm,
online.
mm,
And it is really interesting. They do not feel the scariness or the qualms about it that it seems like people in midlife do. And it's probably because they kind of grew up with it. I mean, I
yeah.
don't know if
Right.
that, yeah, but there are so many great ways online to just meet people in general. You can have meetups where you
Wow.
find people with the common interests. So that is a great way to look at it as, okay, I'm just going to do this and I might meet somebody that is great, or I just might have a nice dinner and then I'm gone. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really beautiful way of approaching it without this heavy expectation and attachment of if this person isn't the one, then, God help me. But also, I think for midlife women, it's true. Like our kids, anything online is just second nature to them. They don't question it. It's so easy. But for midlife women to suddenly find themselves on apps and websites and so on, it can feel daunting. It can feel scary. You can feel out of your comfort zone. And I think the first thing is just to acknowledge, you know what, my truth is I'm a bit scared. And just really acknowledge it rather than beat yourself up. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't keep up. I'm hopeless at this. My truth is this is new to me. I feel scared. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to figure it out. I'm willing to be shown how. I'm willing to find someone to kind of help me navigate it. That's why I bring an expert to talk with my clients about this. He tells them what photos work best. He explains to them how to get those photos. He helps them with their profiles. He helps them figure out red flags and so on dating. He helps them understand the algorithms. It's like anything. If you haven't done something ever before, you don't know if you can do it or not until you do. So it's just having that, again, self-love invites you to approach it with gentleness, with kindness, with patience, and to dip your toe in a way that feels good for you. And really, releasing so much expectation that that is the only way that your person can come in, because they'll come in, you could be sat next to them in a coffee shop, someone might introduce you, like you just don't know. I've heard all sorts of stories, and we love the meet cute stories, right, of how people meet. And yes, online dating is one route, but there's so many other wonderful, miraculous ways that your person could come in, and you do have to take some action. And if online dating is an action you can take, then wonderful. But energetically, my belief is like the universe has eyes and ears. And as long as you're seen to be taking action in a way that feels good for you, that's all that's required. And how it's going to happen is literally up to the gods. And you doing your inner work and focusing on feeling good and being the woman you came here to be and loving yourself every day, that will make you the vibrational match to the person that is also looking for you. So how that person finds you is really none of your business. You're going to do your best without attachment, and they'll find you. And that's a huge trust piece right there, I guess.
Right. But like you said, if you can clear some of the energy that's blocking that, then you'll be open to possibilities. I think a lot of times women who just close themselves off, you can see it when someone's sitting at a coffee shop, who's approachable, who do you feel like is kind of just enjoying the day, or very closed off with a book in front of them and or on their phone, because everybody's on their phone looking down. But
Yeah.
it's just kind of an energy. You do get a vibe from people who have kind of an openness to experience versus leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered. I wanted to make sure that we brought up a program that you have that is free for is it 5 days to meet your soulmate? I want to make sure I get that great.
Well, that's a great title. It's close. It's a 5-day challenge, and it's called Meet Your Soulmate. So yeah, 5 days to meet your soulmate. Although that's a pretty big promise, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, you might want a disclaimer on that one at the end.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
can you tell us about your new program?
Yeah, so it's completely free. It's also online. I host it live every day for 5 days. And essentially what I'm doing is moving a group of women through a process of these foundational self-love pieces to develop a relationship with themselves so that they are the vibrational match for who they're calling in. So we do mindset work, we do emotional healing work. They get absolute clarity on who they're desiring to call in. They create a vision around that. I won't say any more because otherwise I'll ruin the week. But we do some really profound transformational work in those 5 days. And the group environment of all of these midlife women who are all in the same boat, like there's something so empowering of knowing that you're not the only one, and hearing other women's concerns or struggles or excitements. It instills hope that this is possible for you.
And can you share where they can find that?
Yes. Well, can I share the link with you
Oh,
in your
sure.
We'll
show
have it
notes,
in,
perhaps?
yes, we'll have it in the
Yeah.
show notes. We'll have the link in
Yeah.
the show notes. It would be on your website, right?
Yeah. Also, if they come over to theschoolofself.love and click on courses, and it'll be listed in there.
Well, thank you so much, Katie, for coming on the show. We appreciate it. Obviously, it's that time of year where everybody's thinking about love, talking about love, shoving love down everyone's throats with cards and flowers and candy. So why not include self-love? Buy your own candy, buy some flowers for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, you probably get the right ones this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Oh, Colleen, thank you so much for having me. Bridget, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Okay.